Okay, well, today's guest, he's been competing since 1977. He's competed in over 130 competitions. And he's been doing this all naturally. He's the grandfather of natural bodybuilding. Let's welcome him here to the channel. This is Chuck Thomson. So how you doing, Chuck?
Super good.
Episode 1 is going to be the IDFA guy and the champ. So it's something we're going to continue doing. And today the champ is Chuck Thomson. He's very well known in Western Canada, and they know him as Chuck. He's been competing for over 40 some odd years. What inspires you, or what keeps you going competing all these years?
Well, I've been training since 1970, so this is my 51st year training. Right. And I'm still just as excited today to walk into the gym and train as I am when I started. So, it hasn't changed. That enthusiasm is still there, and the same enthusiasm for the camaraderie and the hanging out with all the competitors and everybody who's part of a show on the day of the show. All of that stuff still excites the spirit. There's enough of the ham in me that really enjoys being on stage. I really enjoy being out there. I enjoy the experience on the day. I enjoy hanging out with the athletes backstage, talking to all the athletes, finding out what they're going to eat after a show, and
I know your first competition was 1977. What drew you to competing? Like, what made you want to compete, and then why?
I went down to Calgary to judge provincials in gymnastics. And we had some time on the day, so I drove down with some people, and I had them drop me off at BJ's gym in Calgary. Okay. And BJ Annis got me involved in this sport, and BJ was the son-in-law of Stu Hart, the wrestling promoter.
Oh, nice.
And brother-in-law of Bret Hart, and that whole crew. So he was married to Georgia Hart, and BJ said, you got a decent set of arms. You should think about competing in the Alberta Championships, which is coming up in 6 weeks. So he gave me a little direction and everything else, and it was the start there. And BJ shut down in 2011. But I did get a chance to stop by a couple of years before that and thank him for all of the contribution he'd made to getting me started in the sport. I'd been training, and I was also competing in gymnastics, and had always considered myself a bodybuilder because I had done some bodybuilding courses, Charles Atlas course and a Weider course, and enjoyed all of that. And it worked out good. I went and competed for the first time. It was in Calgary. Of all the shows I've done, I remember the first one in detail, and I always tell people, in the first show you'll always remember. I know exactly who I was standing next to. I was standing next to the great Henry Cocker, who won the Canadas and the North Americans that year, in addition to the Albertas.
Okay.
And Henry was just such a class gentleman, and he helped me so much. Mm-hmm. And it was a good thing. And I always said, I don't think anyone saw me at that show. And I said they were all looking at Henry. And I said, but that's okay. So was I. But he was, the show went off. I got through my posing routine and got through everything. I placed 16th out of 24 athletes. That was my start in the sport, so humble beginnings.
Yeah.
And it started a tradition of going to Peter's Drive-In after the show for a triple cheeseburger and a chocolate strawberry milkshake. So that has been a tradition that I've maintained to this day.
When you did the first time, did you think you were going to compete in over 130 shows?
Never in my wildest dreams did I ever think I would be competing in that many shows. I competed in my first one in '77, and there weren't very many shows around, so I was doing one show a year, basically, for the most part.
Yeah.
And then it jumped to 2, and then to 3, but it was very small numbers as I started, because there just weren't that many shows around for a young novice bodybuilder.
When did it become like something you looked into? Like, when did you say, hey, how many shows have I done? Like, what day was it? Why did you do it? Like, what made you think to start counting how many shows you did?
That topic came up at a show.
Okay.
And Matt Park, he said, I've done a lot of shows. How many have you done? I said, I don't know. I said, but I wrote them down. So I said, I'll check. And he says, and I said, I don't know. What's the most number of shows anyone's done? He says, well, Milo Sarcev has done a lot of shows. And so that was my start point. And so Milo Sarcev did 74 shows, which I thought was an enormous number. When I did my tally of how many shows I had done, I was at 69 shows.
Oh my God.
So that's where I was. So he's the only one I saw there, but as I got into it, I started to look at all of the athletes who had competed in bodybuilding shows and how many shows they had done. So it was just a lot of legwork on my part to track down some of the information. Thank God for the internet. That has helped greatly in terms of getting all that information. And so at the present time, I know that I'm one of 8 people that has done over 100 shows.
Whoa.
So my good friend Tracy Teitelbaum out of Phoenix, Arizona, has done 650 shows. He's number 1 on the list. And second is Carl Marshall, who's a great artist. And he always used Bad to the Bone as his posing music. And he was another great gentleman to hang out with on the day of the show.
Okay.
And Martin Drake at 182 shows is in 3rd place.
Wow.
And then I'm in 4th at 134. And then behind me, there is Albert Beckles, Ken Ross from Australia. Albert Beckles did 112 shows, spread over 5 different decades.
Yep.
And he won a Masters competition at age 61. Just an amazing athlete.
Right.
And Frank Capilupo's in there, and then we've got Rodney Gaines in there. So that's our 8. So, but I did read something a while ago on Robbie Robinson, and it talked about how he's done over 300 shows. I only have his record for pro shows.
Wow.
But I'm gonna try and talk to him and find out how many he actually did. Supposedly it's somewhere around 300, so it would move him ahead of me, but into rarefied company.
Wow.
But Albert Beckles competing in 5 different decades. I've done that as well, and the next show that I do will put me into 6 different decades.
And by knowledge of what you know, you'll be the only one that you know of in 6 decades? When you get that?
I think so at this point. I think that there's probably 1 or 2 other athletes that would be close. And then 2015, I did 5 shows, which was shows 96, 97, 98, 99, and 100.
Right.
And so some people thought that I was going to quit because I got to 100 shows, but it was just a milestone, not an end point. So I've kept going, but that was a special year because I got a chance to compete with several of the organizations that I have a lot of respect for. And so they were part of my final 5. So and to get to that 100 mark, and that was a good place to finish the year. And I enjoyed that so much, and I was treated royally. at all the shows I was at this year. I'd asked all the promoters if I could get my show number as my competitor number, and they all came through for me. So that was good. And your show was show number 98 on my list.
Oh, you know things. Yeah. So I called you the top of the interview, right, or the top of the conversation here. I called you the grandfather. I think we should call you the godfather of natural bodybuilding. You've been around so long, you know so much. Like, you have so much respect from all the natural athletes. Maybe legend status for sure, because no one's going to ever duplicate what you've done. Like, this is insanity. Oh, someone called you God.
At times, yeah, it is. But it's also, the journey has been so much fun. And I just turned 68 at the beginning of February, and I don't feel any different now than I did when I was in my 20s. I feel so good, and I still go into the gym with the same enthusiasm now as I did when I started. And it's just so much. I feed off the energy in the gym. And so the harder people train, the harder I can train.
You embody like the living the lifestyle. They always say it's a lifestyle, but not everyone actually does live the lifestyle. But you 100% persona.
Well, it's my hobby, it's my passion, it's my lifestyle. So it's all of those things. So it's very important to me, and all of the best things in my life have come to me through bodybuilding. And that includes an ex-wife.
Fair enough.
And it was my ex-wife that got me involved with the IDFA.
Yeah,
because Marty had checked out and found out that you were going to host a show in Calgary, and she entered and did very well. She was, I think, first in Masters and got her pro card, and I think she was second in the Open.
Oh, okay. I don't know.
Yeah, that was 2008 when your first show, and I was there helping out her backstage, and I also helped out a young man by the name of Gerald Lafergie backstage. He was 16. It was his first show. He was with his mother, and so I helped him out a lot, and he's turned into be a lifelong friend. So it's been a great association, and he keeps trying to talk me into going to Australia for a show because he's living in Australia because he met a girl from there and got married.
If someone's about to compete in natural bodybuilding, not necessarily about the competing part, well, what would you tell them about what kind of experience they're going to have and why they should do it, like compete in natural bodybuilding?
Many people start out making committed to the show, but it's been my experience that whether there is 10 in your category or 5 or even 1, in January, 50 to 100 people started out on that journey. And the drop-off is that great because people quit because they can't handle the diet, real life gets in the way, and training for a show is never A to B, it's never a straight line. It works the same way the stock market works, so it's bouncing up and down all the time because there's peaks and valleys all the way through to get ready for the show. And the ones who make it to the show, actually make it to the show, are the survivors. So win, lose, or draw, wherever you place on the day, you're a winner because you've put in so much and overcome so much just to get there. And you know, there's always going to be obstacles in your path before you get to a show. And sometimes those obstacles are placed there by somebody else, and sometimes those obstacles are placed there by you. And your skill at overcoming them determines your getting to the show. Because the things that you encounter in bodybuilding, the things you go through in bodybuilding to get there, also carry over into your real life as well. You become that much more disciplined, that much more focused in terms of what you need to accomplish to be successful there as well.
What do you tell the person, because I even know when I competed, when people come up to you and say, why do you want to compete? Like, it makes no sense. You make no money from it. Like, they'll always say stuff like that. There's no money. So they'll ask you, what do you get? What do you earn? How much money are you going to make from winning shows? Nothing. I do it for fun. Why? You hear that people that are not in the sport and not into working out, they'll always ask this. What would your answer be to like that?
Well, the thing is, I describe bodybuilders as artist athletes. Okay. So there's an athletic component to what we do. That's the time we spend in the gym. Right. Then there's that artistic component, and that's our flexing or posing. And the only way to really display that is at a competition.
Okay, true.
So that's part of why I compete, because my goals each year have always been the same. My goal this year is to be better than I was last year. And that's been my goal every year, all the way through. So it's just hoping to bring a little different package to the stage. And
well, it's important to understand that they've overcome so much. Every person has a story to get there, and it's always interesting. And then there's a number of federations that have gone to a new you or a transformation challenge, you know, and that's one of my favorite categories. Okay, just simply because people have overcome so much to make it there, and bodybuilding is, since its inception, is littered with people who have done that, whether it's the 98-pound weakling who has turned into a champion, or whether it is somebody with average genetics who has become Mr. Olympia, like Larry Scott, the first Mr. Olympia.
What do you think changed for the good in bodybuilding from 1977 to 2021? Or 2019, the last time you competed in 2019 from 1977. What's the major difference, or what's a big difference in a positive way? And then is there any difference that you don't like that's happened over 45 years?
I think in a positive way, it has to be with the growth of the women's side.
Okay.
Because women's bodybuilding came around in the early 80s, and by the 2010s had disappeared completely. But the growth of it there, initially the girls sided with the bodybuilders because they didn't think they could promote their own show. They didn't think they were, strong enough to pull it off. So they came with us, and the pendulum has swung 180 degrees, and now the women are the driving force within the sport, and the men are lucky to be part of it.
Yeah, that's true. It's the tides have turned. Like most shows are like 60% women, 40% guys, or if not even more. And then I think the odd show you'll have 50 mix, right? Like it's always majority women nowadays.
Pretty much, yes. I think anybody who makes it to the show has to do more than just show up at the gym. They have to put in the time, effort, and energy to develop their physique. And the function of the difference between a bikini athlete and a physique athlete and a figure athlete on the girls' side, it's all conditioning, and in terms of diet. And so the bikini girls have been the real driving group, the group that's growing by leaps and bounds. The natural competitions have shown that you can accomplish so much without having to sacrifice femininity. So.
Oh, true. What's your take? That's what I think really changed the most. I don't know as far as your era, so I can't go that far back, but as far back 20 years ago when I first started competing, the biggest change I guess that I've seen is a more inclusion of everybody. Like you got everyone from your hardcore competitor to your transformation challenge to your bucket list competitor to your person who just wants to be a part of the whole fitness industry. You've got all different types of people, and I think more 20 years ago you had more of the competitor only. And if you didn't really fit in the mold of the competitor, people would say, oh, why are you here? And I kind of see it as like, I equate it to being like the Boston Marathon, right? You have the few people who are here to win the race, and then you got all these other people that they're here for all different reasons. There's some might be they've done like huge lifestyle transformations. Some have just had on a bucket list to do it. Some are going to do the very best they can, but no, they're not the elite athlete. Some are the elite athlete.
No, but they might set a personal best there. So yeah. I mean, those are all creditable goals in terms of why people will do things. But you have to remember, in terms of bodybuilding, I think it's the toughest sport because there's I've always said it's like taking baseball, soccer, and football and trying to play it all at once on the same court. You know, it would be disaster.
Right.
And that's basically what bodybuilding is about, because it's the only sport where we compete completely differently than the way we train. No other sport does that.
That's true.
And so, you know, we are unique in that regard, and it's difficult just to make it to a show. Mm-hmm. So, you know,
what was that comparison you did before, the physique artist or whatever? How'd you word it?
Well, we're artist athletes, you know, and
like that.
Yeah, and so there's the artistic part to what we do and the athletic part to what we do, and the shows become or photo shoots and all of those things become the artistic display of our physiques.
Right. No, well put. I like that. I'm going to use a hashtag artistic athlete.
Sure. Feel free to use it.
The IDFA guy and the champ. So whoever my guest is, the champ. You're the champ for episode number 1. This is Chuck Thomson, the grandfather of natural bodybuilding, or we may even call him the godfather. I'm not quite sure. He's definitely the historian of natural bodybuilding as well.
Absolutely.
And he's self-proclaimed, well, not self-proclaimed, it's not really, it's not officially documented, but he's like number 4 in the world for the most competitions ever competed in by a human. A body. So thanks again for your time. Thanks for checking out this video. I'm Shaun, this is Chuck. See you guys later. Thanks for checking it out.